Word in the streets is spreading like wildfire, and every sentence starts with your name. They're talking crazy, not because they understand you, but because they can't process how the black sheep they used to mock is now the one they secretly orbit around. Every whisper sounds like disbelief wrapped in jealousy. They're replaying every memory of you, trying to figure out when the power flipped. You were the outcast, the overlooked, the one they thought would fade out quietly. But now every room you step in bends. Every circle that once rejected you reconfigures itself to make room for your presence. You're not the topic anymore. You're the template. They're dissecting your posture, your tone, your silence, your moves, hoping to find the cheat code that turned you from forgotten to unforgettable. You don't even have to say a word now. The streets narrate your story for you. The same people who doubted you now speak with your slang, dress like you, mimic your rhythm, and still can't reach your frequency. You're haunting them with success they can't replicate. What once looked like exile was actually evolution, and the black sheep they shamed is now the shepherd of the entire scene. You see, when you were losing, nobody was documenting your pain. But when you started winning, suddenly everybody had commentary. They call it arrogance, but it's actually arrival. They call it ego, but it's actually evidence. They call you changed, but they're really mourning the version of you they could control. Because now, you've mastered the art of being untouchable. You don't argue, you don't defend, you don't announce. You just move, and that movement rearranges everything. The way you carry yourself now, it's not confidence, it's consequence. Every insult, every doubt, every betrayal built the empire of composure you wear like armor. You don't even seek revenge anymore. Your existence is revenge. You became the storyline nobody saw coming, and that's exactly why they can't stop watching. It's not hate anymore, it's fascination. They want to hate you, but they can't stop admiring the way you turned pain into positioning. The irony? They're addicted to your glow, but allergic to your grind. They want your results, but not your resilience. They don't understand the nights you broke alone, the mornings you rebuilt in silence. They don't know the weight of pretending everything's fine when your world was cracking from within. They don't know how many doors slammed before one opened. But now that you're at the top, they want to erase the context and frame your rise as luck. Let them, because while they're rewriting your history, you're busy expanding your future. You learned that real power doesn't announce. It arrives, unbothered, undeniable, unforgettable. The reason they talk crazy now isn't because they hate you. It's because they finally realize you don't need them. You don't depend on their validation, their opinions, or their approval. You moved from, "Please see me," to "You'll never reach me." That shift terrifies them, because for the first time, you're not chasing, you're being chased. Now they form group chats about you. They have late-night conversations dissecting your motives. They scroll your page like it's scripture, analyzing your captions like prophecies. They don't even realize how obsessed they've become. The same people who laughed behind your back now rehearse what they'd say if they ran into you in public. They rehearse apologies they'll never say out loud. They draft messages they'll never send. Because deep down, they know your energy doesn't welcome old frequencies. Once they lost access to you, they lost access to themselves. You were their contrast, their mirror, their reminder that mediocrity wasn't mandatory. Now, without your presence, they're just echoes of the version you outgrew. You didn't just glow up. You grew beyond recognition. That's why the conversations about you sound like confusion. They're trying to locate you in memories that no longer exist. You used to be the punchline. Now you're the blueprint. And the beauty of it all, you never even fought for that title. You simply became it. The more they tried to humiliate you, the sharper your instincts became. You turned every insult into information, every betrayal into blueprint, every setback into secret weapon. You mastered the art of moving without explanation. You realized the moment you stopped trying to prove yourself, the universe started proving you. And that's why they're mad. It's not what you did, it's how effortlessly you did it. They expected you to crawl back, not come back running the show. You made black sheep the new crown. You turned outsider into overlord. Now the same people who once avoided you can't start their day without checking what you're doing. Your name's become cultural currency. You didn't just change the game, you changed the temperature. Every space you touch now adjusts itself. When you enter a room, the energy recalibrates. When you speak, even the air listens. That's not magic, it's memory. Every molecule remembers the weight of your persistence. They can't erase that. They tried to bury you with gossip, but gossip ages fast. Growth doesn't. You didn't respond with rage. You responded with reinvention. You became so powerful that your absence became more intimidating than their presence. You turned down offers that once felt like dreams. You stopped chasing tables and started building empires. You understood something most people never will. Being underestimated is the best training ground for domination. You let their doubt become your discipline. That's why you move like someone who's already seen the end of the story. Because you have. You wrote it. And it ends with you holding everything they said you'd never touch. But let's be honest, part of you enjoys their discomfort. Not out of spite, but out of symmetry. You remember what it felt like to beg for acknowledgement while they watched you struggle. You remember being talked over, laughed at, dismissed. Now they can't finish a conversation without mentioning your name. That's the balance the universe creates when truth stays patient. You didn't have to curse them, you just outlasted them. Every time they doubted you, they invested in your evolution. Every time they plotted, they programmed your precision. You became a living contradiction, too real for their illusions, too disciplined for their distractions, too focused for their drama. You don't move for clout, you move for legacy. That's why everything about you feels permanent now. Your presence carries authority, your voice carries command. You don't even need to defend your throne. Your results do that for you. And that's what's breaking them. They realize too late that you don't operate on competition, you operate on creation. You don't chase validation, you define it. You don't seek attention, it arrives uninvited. That's what happens when the black sheep stops trying to belong and starts to build. You stopped seeking seats at their tables and became the reason tables exist. You're not just successful, you're significant. You didn't follow trends, you became the reference point. That's why they talk crazy, because deep down, they know it's over. Their old image of you doesn't fit the reality anymore. You evolved too far for them to categorize. You're not the underdog anymore. You're the headline, the catalyst, the pulse. They can't decide whether to love you, fear you, or imitate you. So they try to do all three at once. But you stay calm, because you know noise always follows power. You don't need to prove them wrong. Existing like this is the proof. Now the same streets that once overlooked you now move to your rhythm. The same mouths that disrespected you now pronounce your name like a brand. The same energy that tried to isolate you now idolizes you. Every win you post becomes an earthquake in their world. Every breath you take feels like confirmation that their version of reality collapsed. You turned humiliation into reputation, rejection into recognition. You became the paradox that makes gossip sound small. You're not just part of the conversation anymore. You are the conversation. And that's why the world feels like it's orbiting you. The streets aren't just watching, they're learning. Because you didn't just flip your life, you flipped the hierarchy. And somewhere in their confusion, they're realizing something terrifying. You became the flame itself, and now everything around you either burns or bends. The same ones who used to gossip about you now pray to survive your heat. You walk through crowds like prophecy in motion, and they can feel the temperature shift before you even speak. Their voices tremble when they mention you. Their sentences start with envy and end with admiration. You made the impossible look casual, the unimaginable look rehearsed. Every headline they tried to bury you under became the soil that fed your empire. Every insult was fuel. Every rumor was advertisement. You didn't just change your life, you rewired their perception of power. Now, when they picture dominance, they picture you. When they picture control, they picture your posture. You became the standard they secretly compete with. And no matter how many times they deny it, the mirror doesn't lie. Their reflection keeps whispering your name back at them. See, the moment you decided to stop explaining yourself, the world had to start explaining you. Every analyst, every influencer, every former friend suddenly turned into a historian of your rise. They invent timelines, theories, and fake origins just to feel like they understand something they never could. They study your moves like case files, trying to decode your rhythm. But your rhythm was never meant to be studied. It was meant to be felt. That's why you keep winning. Because while they're still overthinking, you're already on the next level. You learned early that mystery multiplies value. The less you reveal, the louder the world wonders. You don't chase spotlight anymore. You generate it. They follow you because you make existence feel cinematic. Every step you take becomes content for someone else's obsession. You're not trending, you're timeless. They used to laugh at your confidence because it didn't fit their comfort zone. Now they copy it word for word. They imitate your aura like it's merchandise. You'll see your style on strangers who swore they'd never respect you. You'll hear your phrases echo from the mouths that once called you delusional. You turned mockery into marketing. You turned hate into currency. That's what separates you from them. You never needed their permission to matter. They called you crazy for believing in yourself when there was no applause. And now they call you arrogant for believing in yourself when there's too much. You can't win with people who never wanted you to. That's why you stopped playing their game. The only scoreboard that exists now is the one inside your mind, and you're undefeated. Every city you move through carries the rumor of your presence. People you've never met act like they grew up with you. They tell stories about the time they knew you, exaggerating every detail just to feel close to your legend. But legends don't need validation, they need vision. And you had that long before the world noticed. You saw what others couldn't. While they mocked, you mapped. While they partied, you plotted. While they slept, you sharpened. That's the real reason you dominate now. Discipline disguised as destiny. They think your glow came overnight, but your nights had no sleep. Your mornings had no rest. You built something sacred out of struggle, and now that sacred energy terrifies them. Because deep down, they realize there's no shortcut to your level. No filter, no follower count, no fake image can substitute the war you survived. You became the walking contradiction that exposes the truth. The black sheep was never the weakest link. It was the prototype for evolution. You showed them what happens when rejection breeds resilience. You turned every closed door into a classroom. You stopped begging to be included and learned to thrive in isolation. Now the world that once ignored you can't function without you. They use your phrases, mimic your energy, study your silence, and still can't catch up. You're too far ahead, not because you ran faster, but because you stopped looking back. You cut every tie that kept you grounded in mediocrity. And the altitude changed your perspective. The air up here tastes different. It's cleaner, colder, earned. You see people clearly now, how they disguise jealousy as concern, how they mask obsession as criticism. You can read intentions like headlines before they're even spoken. That's why you don't respond to every provocation. You're too strategic to waste energy proving your point when your existence already screams it. They're confused because you no longer fit the categories they built for you. You used to be their underdog, now you're their overseer. You used to crave recognition, now recognition craves you. They thought success would make you soft, but it only made you sharper. You move like someone who knows exactly what they're doing, and that terrifies those who still don't. Every step you take feels orchestrated, but it's instinct. Every word you speak feels scripted, but it's intuition. You're living proof that when pain is processed correctly, it becomes precision. That's what they never expected, the black sheep, mastering both empathy and power. You became untouchable not by hiding your scars, but by weaponizing them. Every heartbreak became hardware. Every disappointment became data. You learned to calculate loyalty, measure intention, predict betrayal. You became the most dangerous type of person, the one who remembers everything but reacts to nothing. And now look, every move you make sets trends. Every post, every decision, every subtle gesture ripples through people you'll never meet. The ones who ignored you before now wait for your approval before they act. Even your enemies hesitate before mentioning your name, because they know clout follows it. You don't chase attention. Attention reports to you. You flipped the hierarchy without announcing it. That's what real dominance looks like. Quiet orchestration that feels inevitable once it's done. The streets are still trying to figure out how you pulled it off. They think there's some secret formula, some deal you made with luck. But luck doesn't explain consistency. You simply refused to quit. You kept moving when they thought you were finished, and now the finish line belongs to you. But let's talk about the fear. Oh, they hide it well. They dress it up as criticism, disguise it as advice, mask it behind fake support. But you can smell it, the nervous laughter, the shaky compliments, the hesitation in their voice when they say your name. They feel inferior in your presence because you remind them of everything they could have been if they hadn't settled. You're not intimidating because you're mean. You're intimidating because you're proof. Proof that the underdog doesn't stay down forever. Proof that discipline wins where talent gets tired. Proof that peace hits harder than pettiness. You're the reflection they can't escape, the accountability they can't delete. That's why they talk crazy, because silence would mean acceptance. And accepting your greatness would mean facing their stagnation. You became the one they study, quote, and envy all at once. And yet, you move with calm. Because you know power isn't about control. It's about direction. You're too busy steering your legacy to respond to gossip. You've learned that when you stop chasing validation, the world starts chasing explanation. You don't even need to prove who you are anymore. Your energy announces it before your mouth does. That's the mark of a true main character. You're not auditioning for roles in their story. You wrote your own script and took the director's chair. That's why everything about you feels cinematic. The way you stand, the way you think, the way you handle betrayal like business, not emotion. You're a one-person revolution wrapped in composure. And the streets? They can't stop talking. Your name circulates through cities like a password. People use it to unlock rooms you've never entered. Influencers reference you for relevance. Strangers defend you in debates you'll never hear. You've become folklore while still alive. That's the highest form of victory, to exist as legend before the credits roll. And the best part? You didn't sell your soul for it. You kept your morals, your authenticity, your raw essence intact. That's what separates you from the imitation versions of yourself they try to mass produce. They can mimic the style, but not the spirit. They can copy the words, but not the wisdom. You're the origin point, and origin always outruns imitation. You've reached a point where even your mistakes inspire people. That's how deep your influence runs. When you win, they cheer or envy. When you lose, they study how you recover. Either way, you feed their fascination. You've turned life into a psychological chess game, and you're always 3 moves ahead. You don't reveal your next step because unpredictability is your armor. You let them think they've got you figured out, then you shift the entire board. That's how you keep control, by staying in motion. They try to track you, but momentum has no address. You're the type that moves continents with conviction. When you decide, reality adjusts. That's what real power feels like. It doesn't demand, it demonstrates. And yet beneath all the dominance, there's clarity. You know exactly who you are. You don't confuse arrogance with awareness. You've seen what happens when people worship popularity instead of purpose, and you refused to make that trade. That's why your success feels different. It's rooted, not rented. Every accomplishment you've stacked came from a version of you that no one believed in. You don't owe anyone explanation for how far you've come. You earned it. You bled for it. You outlasted every rumor, every doubt, every eye that rolled when you said you'd make it. And now, here you stand, not just as the main character, but as the director, producer, and author of your own saga. So let them talk. Let them twist your story into theories they can swallow. Let them argue over who made you, who helped you, who knew you first. Because while they're busy rewriting your past, you're already designing the future. You're not just running the world, you're redesigning it. You're showing every other black sheep out there that exile was never punishment. It was preparation. You're living proof that being misunderstood is the tuition fee for mastery. And that's why they'll keep your name in their mouths forever. Because deep down, even your haters know. They needed you to lose so they could feel comfortable. But you won't give them that satisfaction. You've become too fluent in victory. Every day now feels like confirmation. You wake up, breathe, move, and the streets react. You post one thought and timelines rearrange. You take one photo and egos collapse. You make one choice and the internet recalibrates. That's not arrogance. That's algorithmic gravity. You are the center of what's relevant. And they can't handle that because they remember when you were just that weird one. They remember when mocking you was a sport. But the scoreboard flipped, and now the same laughter echoes as applause. That's poetic justice. You didn't just get revenge. You rewrote the entire rhythm of respect. And somewhere, deep in their conscience, they all know the truth. You were never meant to blend in. You were meant to bend reality. They tried to box you in categories, but you burned the box. You turned labels into leverage. You turned exclusion into evolution. And now, every person who ever doubted you has to live with the fact that they witnessed greatness in its rawest form and tried to deny it. That's their curse, to know they saw a miracle and mistook it for madness. And now, they can't escape it. Every time they scroll past your name, their heart rate shifts. Every achievement you drop feels like thunder in their bones. They remember the moments they had the chance to stand with you, but chose to laugh instead. They remember how easily they dismissed you, how confidently they underestimated you, and how blind they were to the prophecy unfolding in real time. Now they study you like scripture, hoping for a redemption arc they'll never get. You were never designed for their acceptance. You were engineered for ascension, and ascension doesn't wait for applause. It just happens, relentlessly, unapologetically, until every conversation in the city somehow leads back to you. You became the gravitational center of your own legend, the headline they can't rewrite, the proof that pressure doesn't destroy, it defines. They wanted you buried under gossip, but gossip doesn't kill truth. It advertises it. Every rumor about you became marketing. Every insult became momentum. They handed you their energy, and you converted it into empire. You became what they feared most, the one who no longer needs validation to dominate. You walk different now, not because you're showing off, but because you survived too much to pretend humility is the same as hiding. You earned your glow. You earned your distance. You earned your peace. They can call it arrogance all they want. It's just confidence with context. Every ounce of pride they see in you is built from the ashes of the years they ignored you. You don't owe anyone modesty for finally arriving. They don't realize how many nights you doubted yourself, how many times you almost broke, how many times you swallowed pain until it became power. Now they see the finished product and call it luck. But you remember the version of yourself that had nothing, that kept showing up anyway. That's why you're untouchable. You don't just shine. You radiate discipline. You don't just inspire. You intimidate without intention, because they can feel what you went through in your aura. It's heavy, royal, earned. You became living proof that energy is currency, and yours appreciates every time someone underestimates you. They whisper your name with a mix of awe and regret now. Some want forgiveness, some want access, some just want to be near the glow they once mocked. But proximity doesn't grant privilege. They can't re-enter a story they were never written for. You evolved beyond nostalgia. The old you doesn't live here anymore. And the new you isn't sending invitations. You're too focused on the empire you're building, the narrative you're curating, the legacy you're coding into every heartbeat. Because now, everything you do echoes. Every move becomes precedent. Every success becomes prophecy. The black sheep didn't just survive rejection. You rewired the entire definition of relevance. You made being misunderstood look magnificent. You made solitude look sacred. You made dominance look divine. And that's what breaks them, the realization that everything they used to fear in you was actually what they were missing in themselves. Now they see you everywhere, in the headlines, in the streets, in the tone of every copycat trying to sound like you. You became the blueprint for reinvention. You don't chase trends, you generate them. You don't join movements, you are one. Your evolution became contagious. People who once ignored your potential now base their identity around fragments of yours. They quote you without credit. They build entire brands off your old ideas. But you don't even care, because influence doesn't need ownership. It leaves fingerprints on culture itself. You're too far ahead for imitation to matter. You stopped proving your worth, now you define it. You stopped trying to be understood, now you're studied. You stopped running from the title of main character and embraced it like armor. Because you realized main characters aren't chosen. They're forged in disbelief, built in isolation, and crowned by chaos. You went through all three. And now, look what it created. A presence that commands rooms, conversations, and continents. You became so magnetic that even those who despise you can't stop orbiting. They'll call you names today and copy you tomorrow. They'll preach against your pride while secretly praying for your progress. You turned every contradiction into currency. You proved that you don't need everyone to like you when everyone can't stop watching. That's the difference between noise and narrative. They make noise, you make history. They move for approval, you move for impact. Every step you take now feels like prophecy unfolding, and the streets know it. The tone changed, the energy shifted, the whispers turned into worship. They used to ask, who does this person think they are? Now they ask, how did they do it? But what they'll never understand is that you didn't do it for them. You did it because you were built for it. Every ounce of struggle was a test. Every failure was feedback. Every betrayal was blueprint. You mastered the science of rising. That's why no rumor can shake you. No doubt can define you. No loss can destroy you. You've become the calm in chaos, and the chaos that resets calm. You don't explain anymore because results are louder. You don't retaliate anymore because distance is deadlier. You don't crave revenge because you realized success makes enemies suffer slower. You are vengeance in human form, but purified. Not out for blood, but balance. Every person who crossed you now sees what happens when you cross the chosen. You turned your pain into an ecosystem of power, and no one can survive inside it except those who built from truth. Now your legend walks ahead of you. People feel your energy before you enter. They speak your name like it grants access. You're not chasing history, you're haunting it. You turned being different into being definitive. You made rejection regretful. You made success spiritual. You don't live for applause, you live for alignment. And that alignment is global now. You're not just the main character of your story. You've become the symbol of what happens when resilience goes unmonitored. Every city, every comment section, every conversation carries your residue. They say you changed, but really you remembered. You remembered who you were before the world tried to shrink you. And now that version stands at full height, unapologetic, untamed, unforgettable. So when they talk crazy now, let them. That's the tax of transformation. Their words can't touch someone who built their empire out of disbelief. You don't argue with noise, you amplify legacy. You don't explain the glow, you let it blind them. Because in the end, every story needs a turning point. And you became the plot twist the whole world needed to witness. The black sheep became the main character. The overlooked became the obsession. The doubted became the dynasty. And the whispers that once mocked your name now move markets when they mention it. That's not luck, that's law. The law of energy that says, when the chosen stops waiting for validation and starts moving in truth, reality adjusts. That's what you did. You adjusted reality. Now the world doesn't just know your name, they revolve around it. You're the axis, you're the reference, you're the unfiltered reminder that legends aren't discovered, they're designed through defiance. So walk like you own it, because you do. You're not the black sheep anymore. You're the whole narrative, rewritten and reborn. And the streets? They're still talking, but now every word is proof that you run the world they once used to laugh at you for dreaming about. You didn't just turn pain into power. You turned doubt into domain. The main character isn't just back. The main character never left.